Hello everyone, welcome to a video that I'm going to be doing. I just got this idea recently from a content creator that I was watching in the Genshin community. So I'm gonna, shamelessly steal the idea, sort of, and make a little video about this, just kind of giving my opinion, my thoughts on the topic at hand. Um, and honestly, I know that like not very many people watch me, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of making this video for fun anyways. So if you were not aware, if you don't really keep up to date with the current, I guess, trending videos on YouTube, there was recently a sort of a tier list video that was released by the channel known as WatchMojo.com. Uh, and it was essentially a Genshin Impact tier list, and they claimed that it was a tier list based on DPS characters, or I guess the DPS output of characters specifically. It was ranking them based on that, right? Uh, and so I'm not gonna, show the video, because I feel like, if you want to go watch the video and see what they said in the video, that's entirely your choice. You can go and find it on your own. But I don't want to like use their footage and then just like talk over it. So what I did was I essentially recreated their tier list by using this website here, tiermaker.com. And I essentially arranged it the same way that they had in the video, 1 through 10. And they also had a small, short section titled Honorable Mentions. And so I added that at the bottom of this tier list. So, yeah, let's dive into this and see what exactly, they gave us in this tier list, okay? So at number 10, we have Diluc. Number 9, we have Raiden Shogun. Number 8, we have Shao. Number 7, we have Ayaka. Number 6, we have Venti. Number 5, we have Kazuha. Number 4, we have Zhongli. Number 3, Hu Tao. Number 2, Yula. Number 1, Ganyu. Now, I think that if you were to look at this through the eyes of any experienced, knowledgeable Genshin Impact player, right, they would immediately tell you that there is so much wrong going on in this tier list. Like, there are so many things that you could nitpick about and that you could sort of go into detail, maybe like, argue against, and just like prove wrong, Um, as for the honorable mentions in the video, they brought up 3 different characters: Bennett, Child, or Tartaglia, as I call him, and Mona. So, let's start, I guess. We will start with number 10, right, Diluc. I personally, I do not own Diluc on my Genshin Impact account. I've never really had the opportunity to use him outside of like his trial quests and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I would say that like, you know, he is an okay DPS. I don't think that he is number 10 in the entire game, but like, I would say, like, if you were to take out the concept of numbers, right? Like if you were to take away the 1 through 10 ranking and you were to just say like, I think that blank characters are better than Diluc, blank characters are worse than Diluc. I think that roughly the concept or the idea of his placing among the rest of these characters, it's not, I wouldn't say it's 100% inaccurate. What I would say is that he is a decently strong DPS character, but that he was power crept very early on, and he requires very heavy support in order to reach the same levels of other DPS characters. So, you know, while I can't necessarily agree with 10th place for Diluc, he's, like, I definitely would not put him higher than 10. Let's just say that, right? Yeah. Number 9. Raiden Shogun. I would say that if we are focusing solely on DPS capabilities in this list, and we are not really, taking into consideration any other factors, yeah, this is really weird because Raiden Shogun is not meant to be played as a main DPS. I would say that you have the ability to, you can if you want to. However, that ability is only really given to a player, I would say, that has C2 Raiden Shogun, or, more than C2, like C3, C4, so on and so forth. Like, if you have C2 or even more constellations, you have that ability to, try building her as a main DPS. However, she is not meant to be played as such. Like, that is not her strength. That is not her optimal playstyle. She is more so of a support character. And as a support character, she's fantastic. She is definitely not the 9th best support character. She's a lot higher. As a DPS, I can't say that she's number 9, but she, I think that you could place her higher on the list, but you could also argue for her to stay at number 9, or go, to number 10 or even lower on the ranking. Yeah, this entire list, I will just say, I'm not a fan of it at all, because essentially what WatchMojo has done is they have taken characters and, made them compete with one another in the area of DPS capability, supposedly, quote unquote. However, at least half of these characters are not meant to be DPS characters. That's not their strength. That's not their, that is not their purpose in the game. At least half of these characters are meant to be played as support characters, and they excel insanely well as support characters. So WatchMojo, their tier list is insanely scuffed. It is really just, I mean, at its core, it is a garbage tier list. It is not at all accurate. They have a very basic, vague idea of some characters, but the rest of them, they just completely plain wrong, So, yeah, that's what I'll say. Number 8, we have Xiao. I will say, immediately, Xiao is not number 8. If we're talking about DPS capabilities, he is not number 8. He is so much higher than that. I would absolutely 100% place Xiao in top 5 DPS characters in the game, because he is actually meant to be played as a primary DPS character on a team. Like, he is a damage dealer character. And, I think that one of Xiao's great strengths that puts him up there at the top of the rankings is that Xiao deals AoE damage, not single target. He deals area of effect damage. And on top of that, once you reach a certain point in Genshin Impact, right, there are certain challenges, certain content in the game where you have some sort of limitation placed on you, where it's like, okay, you know, for example, let's take the Genshin Impact. There is a boss, like a world boss that you can fight in the game. His name is Ajdaha. I believe I pronounced that right. I might have fucked up the pronunciation. But this boss, every week, he has these two elements that he is infused by. And basically, the simplest explanation I can give for it is that when he is infused with a certain element, he gains an insane amount of resistance to that specific element. So let's say he's infused with Pyro. That means that if you use a Pyro character against him, it's going to deal way less damage than it normally should and would deal. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the damage reduction, or I guess the damage resistance that he gains is 70%, if I'm not mistaken, which is a very, very hefty amount. And it can essentially shut down, or not shut down, but I would say that it will absolutely slow down your ability to clear his boss, I guess his boss quest, faster, you know, at a faster pace, at the normal pace that you do. You will most likely take a lot longer to defeat him if you do take a character that, you know, matches the elemental infusion that he is that week, right? So for a boss such as Ajdaha, for a content that is similar to Ajdaha's mechanics, where you have some sort of debuff placed on specific elements, someone like Xiao is insanely useful and like basically a lifesaver, because Xiao is an Anemo character, and not very many, you know, bosses, not a lot of content in the game has limitations against a Nemo element, right? So when you are placed into a position where perhaps you cannot take your cryo DPS character, your pyro DPS character, so on and so forth, Xiao is your man right there, like easy. He's got your back. So I definitely put him top 5. He is absolutely 100% not 8th place. Moving on, we have Ayaka at 7th. I will say, for me personally, just kind of addressing my own bias, right? I own Ayaka, and I love her character. She is fantastic. So I do have a strong opinion about her. I will say, though, that from what I understand, hearing the thoughts of other knowledgeable Genshin players in the community, it is pretty widely agreed upon that Ayaka is a top tier DPS character. She is certainly, I would say, in the top 5. She can potentially be in the top 3 best DPS characters currently in the game right now. But top 3 is debatable. You know, people can make arguments for or against it. I will say, I believe that at bare minimum, she is top 5. Her, you know, capabilities when on a permafreeze team are insane. She is fantastic on a permafreeze team. So any content that allows permafreeze, essentially meaning any content that allows the enemies to get frozen and be inflicted with the frozen debuff, that is perfect content for Ayaka. And I will say it is kind of an insult to put her at number 7. Same with Xiao. Same with Xiao at number 8. That is an insult. So I would definitely move these two characters up higher, way higher on the tier list, right? Number 6, we have Venti. Venti is an interesting character because he is meant to be a fantastic, insanely good support character. And the main reason why is because he is a Nemo element, and because he is a Nemo element, sorry, um, he has this ability, right, where he can essentially what is known as crowd control enemies, and he can group enemies together, making it easier for you to kill multiple enemies in one go without, having to kill every enemy one by one by one, right? Um, so Venti is known specifically for his crowd control capabilities, and not only that, but his elemental burst has so much damage potential because of basically the stats, the numbers themselves, the multipliers. He can deal a massive amount of damage as a support character by simply unleashing his burst. And, after he unleashes his burst, you can swap him off the field and swap in your primary DPS character to deal even more damage, right? So he essentially boosts your entire team's DPS capabilities. Now, as for him as a character, he is not a DPS character. You can build him as one. However, he is a character that primarily excels as a support character. I would say that if you were doing solely a DPS tier list, right? Not including any sort of consideration for support capabilities, Venti does not belong on this list. However, if we're talking about just in general, the entire scope of Genshin Impact, if you were ranking characters and rating them based on how good they are overall, including both DPS and support characters, Venti is much, much higher. He is absolutely 100% top 5, and I'd probably say top 3. Maybe top 4. It would depend, right? Um, so yeah, he certainly, in terms of overall utility in the game, he is not number 6 out of 10. He is higher. Number 5, we have Kazuha. Kazuha, in my opinion, I absolutely love this character. I do not own him. Unfortunately, I was forced to skip his banner when he first released. However, if he does return, I am very, very much interested in trying to obtain him if potentially in the future, hypothetically, he does make a return to the game, which I feel like he should at some point. Um, Kazuha is essentially, he has the same role as Venti, right? He groups enemies together, and not only that, but he buffs your teammates' damages, right? By activating his elemental skill and his elemental burst, he increases the amount of damage that your primary DPS and your other characters on your team can deal, right? Um, in my opinion, this is kind of separate from WatchMojo and their scuffed tier list, but I would say I personally value Kazuha more than Venti. Now, I will admit that Venti's burst is insane. It is crazy good, and Kazuha cannot do Venti's burst. So that is a downside to Kazuha, and that is a point to Venti. However, Kazuha as a character, he has so much support capability, and on top of that, he is just simply an insanely fun character to play compared to Venti, that I love Kazuha way more than I do Venti. That's just a personal opinion of mine. So the fact that WatchMojo has Kazuha above Venti in this tier list, that I can sort of agree on, but in general, I do not agree with the placings of these two characters in what they decided to market it as a quote-unquote DPS tier list, right? Kazuha actually, like, if you build him properly, he deals a lot more damage than you would expect from a regular old support character. You know, like, before Kazuha came out, I guess the standard idea or belief behind what a support character is capable of in terms of damage dealing, it was decent, it was mediocre, it was okay. But then Kazuha came out, and I know a lot of people in the community who, at first, they were very hesitant about Kazuha. But then as they tested him, as they tried him out, as they did, you know, their calculations and their theory crafting and whatever, they found out that he actually can deal some significant damage on his own, you know. Obviously, the entire thing depends on team setup, basically character build, all that fun stuff. But he he is a really really good team player, right? In my opinion, yes, Kazuha as well as Venti, both of them belong up in, like, I would say top 5 in terms of overall useful characters in Genshin Impact that are, like, universal, that anyone can benefit from, right? They're certainly top 5. Kazuha might be top 3 for me. I'll have to, you know, think about it a little bit more and ponder on that. Number 4, we have Zhongli. Now, this, to me, this made me laugh. This was absolutely hilarious when I watched the video on YouTube and they put Zhongli in 4th. And the reason why is because Zhongli is possibly the furthest character that you could ever get from a DPS character. There are people out there who have built a Zhongli that can deal some DPS. However, his primary function on a team is to provide an insanely strong shield to protect the teammates and your primary DPS especially, right? Other than that, Zhongli is not meant to do anything else. He is simply a shield bot. And basically, if you build a Zhongli that is meant to deal damage, you would only do so because you are someone who does not really want to follow the, you know, stereotypical meta. You are someone who enjoys Zhongli for his character, and you're someone who wants to have fun with him, kind of play around and try new things. However, if you want to play him optimally, you would go for a shield bot build for him. So I would say that Zhongli as a character, he does not belong on this tier list at all. Like, literally just remove him entirely. He doesn't fit in at all on this tier list. Now, I will say, for me personally, my bias was Zhongli. I love the character. I own him. I use him on basically, you know, every single piece of content that I can in the game, mainly in, like, the open world exploration and, you know, clearing the open world quests and stuff like that. I use him a lot and I love his character. However, I do also realize objectively what he is built for, what he is meant for, what his purpose is. So yeah, essentially Zhongli, get him out of here. He doesn't belong on this list at all. Number 3, we have Hu Tao. Now, Hu Tao is a character that I think a lot of the Genshin community, especially the more intelligent people, they will realize that Hu Tao is, I would say, perhaps the most overrated character in the entire game, right? Hu Tao is an insanely strong pyro DPS character. However, she has one major downside that, like, it brings her down multiple tiers, I would say, in terms of quality compared to other characters. And that is the fact that everything about her kit excluding her elemental burst, everything is single target. She does not have any sort of AoE except for her elemental burst. And the thing is that if you are playing Hu Tao optimally, your main source of DPS and damage is from her charged attacks. It's not from her elemental skill, it's not from her elemental burst. Your charged attacks are what you are, you know, getting the most damage out of, getting the most damage potential out of. There are people out there who have built her so that she, can deal an insane amount of damage from her burst, and, she's kind of built as sort of a burst spam character. However, that is more so for for fun and for memes, right? And for kind of bragging and showing off. It's not really for, seriously tackling content and playing optimally with her. So I would say that while I do love Hu Tao, I own Hu Tao myself. I actually recently got her from her rerun banner, and she is my very first 5-star character that I own who is C1. Like, I have her first constellation. No other character, no other 5-star on my account has any constellations. I ended up pulling for her constellation because her C1 gives her a major, major, major quality of life upgrade. Um, Despite the fact that I own her, that I use her a lot, and I love her to death, she is not a fantastic character. She is not. I don't think she's top 3 in the game. If we're talking about you know, I guess like damage per screenshot maybe, where it's like, oh, what is the highest damage number that can be achieved in game? She might be up there, sure. Like, if you wanted to do the calculations, if you wanted to do the theory crafting, sure. But overall as a character, she is not in the top 3. I don't even think she's in the top 5 in my opinion. Yeah, but again, I love her character. I can't really say anything too negative about her except for what is factual, about her kit. So, yeah. Moving on to number 2, we have Yula. Now, Yula is a character that I do not own. I also dislike her character mainly because of the fact that she is a Claymore user. And I personally, my bias is that I'm not a big fan of Claymore characters. Just playing them in game, it feels so clunky and it feels so awkward and just weird to use their attacks and whatnot, right? Um, so I'm not a big fan of her already from the start. However, you know, I try and look at her from an objective standpoint, one that is kind of free from bias. Um, Yula is known to be a character where if you put in the time, the resources, and I would definitely say the money into, building her up properly at a very min-max end game level investment uh, of a character, she can be fantastic, right? However, the problem is that most people who build Yula, most people who play Yula, they have such a low amount of crit rate on her character, where essentially how it works is that if you are tackling content in the game with Yula, and let's say you're doing something like Spiral Abyss, right? You activate her elemental burst, and the elemental burst, it misses, or maybe the enemy dodges, or they utilize the iframes, and somehow the enemy survives. Most of the time you are gonna end up having to restart and tackle the content again, basically reset the attempt. And I think that honestly, even if you have a high amount of crit rate, like let's say you have 60%, 70%, 80% crit rate on Yula, even so, if you miss her attack, her elemental burst, which is what a lot of people rely on for her to deal, big number damage, you're gonna end up resetting anyways. Like it's how she is, because trying to clear hard content like the later floors of Spiral Abyss while also basically missing out on Eula's burst damage, that is a significant, I guess, debuff, or like that's a downside. That's kind of a disability, right? That you are putting on yourself. And so, essentially, if you cannot get your Eula to attack with critical hits on basically every single time that you activate her burst, you are kind of screwed. You're in a bad position, right? I think that for Eula, her downsides, obviously, you need heavy investment into her to build her properly. Also, she, you know, the majority of her DPS output is going to be coming from her burst. And her burst is basically an attack that does, I think, one hit. It might be a couple hits, but it's not a big number of hits. So once you miss the burst, that's it. Like you lose a large portion of her DPS output. Um, and thirdly, Yula is meant to be built as a physical DPS character. That is her strength, that is her purpose, that is what she is designed for, to be a physical DPS. And from what I have experienced in the game, and from what I've heard from others, it seems like physical DPS, physical damage in this game is a lot more difficult to work with than elemental damage, right? Because physical damage relies a lot more on, raw stats, just plain numbers, rather than, elemental reactions and also like multipliers and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, I personally don't think that Yula is anywhere in the top ranks of DPS. That's just, my opinion. I admittedly, I think that with the right level of investment, she could be top 5. However, beyond top 5, I don't think that she can go top 3 or any higher than that. So, yeah. And then last of all, we have Ganyu. Ganyu, admittedly, I will say, out of everything that is on this tier list, WatchMojo did get Ganyu right. That is the one piece of factual information that they actually did include. Ganyu is a character that honestly is just insanely good. There's no getting around it. She has so much potential, so much DPS potential, and if you build her properly, you can use her to clear almost every single content in the game. She is just insanely good. I personally just don't like her because of the fact that she is a character that uses the bow as a weapon. I'm not a fan of bow characters. And on top of that, she has this I would say this very kind of repetitive and boring playstyle where the source of her damage and what makes her so insanely powerful is her charged attacks. So your optimal way of playing Ganyu is essentially to continuously spam her charged attacks. And in order to do that, you most likely will need, I would say, at bare minimum, you need a character on your team to act as a protective shielder. So Zhongli, Noelle, Xinyan, any character that can provide a shield for Ganyu, I would say that is a must for her if you want to continuously spam charge attacks. You can also, if you feel like you need it for support, you can also add in a healer character as well. However, I do feel like you need to increase the resistance to being interrupted for Ganyu. And because of these aspects of her kit, I'm not a huge fan of her. However, I do realize that in terms of how much damage you can get out of her by building her properly, pairing her with the right characters, all that fun stuff, she is essentially the DPS queen of the game at this current moment. Like, no other character can match her, no other character can beat her in terms of how much DPS she can output. However, I will say that, if we are talking about characters that are kind of, sort of relatable and similar, my personal opinion is that I love Ayaka more than I love Ganyu, in terms of playstyle and all that, I guess visual stuff that players kind of talk about other than damage and numbers and all that nerdy stuff about the game. So yeah. Now, on to the honorable mention section. Near the end of the video, WatchMojo brought up 3 additional characters that were contenders for the top 10 on their scuffed tier list. They were Bennett, Tartaglia, and Mona. I will say that not including Bennett in the top 10 and putting him in honorable mentions, that is essentially a war crime. That is like going against the Geneva Convention. It is despicable. It is ridiculous. It is stupid as hell. Like, honestly, take Ganyu away from the top spot, move everyone down one spot, and put Bennett at the very top. Like, Ganyu does not belong up there if Bennett is not up there with her, right? And honestly, even if he's up there with her, she should be bowing down to him because he is like an insanely good character in the game. He carries almost every single player and every single account in the game. The fact is that Bennett is a 4-star rarity character that essentially, I would say, has the qualities of a 6-star rarity character, even better than a 5-star. He is just, I don't know what to say. He is a broken support character, but he is not broken to the point where, you know, where he becomes sort of an exploit or anything like that. He's not broken to the point where he needs to be, fixed or he needs to be changed. He is fine as he is, but he is just really insanely good. So yeah, it is that's what I'll say about that. Next to Bennett, we have Tartaglia. Tartaglia is a character that I do not own. I personally am not a really big fan of Tartaglia. And the short version of why is because I am very much so a player who, I really do enjoy playstyles kind of similar to like something such as Quick Swap, where you, swap in a character on your team, you activate their abilities, you do some attacks, and then you swap them out. And you consistently and continuously rotate between the characters in your team, right? You don't really have one character that stays on the field the entire time, right? And so what will happen is when I am playing the game, right? I will tag a character in, and there are some characters that, you just press their elemental skill and then you can tag them out. There are some characters that, to play them optimally, you want to hold the elemental skill button, and then, you can let go and you can tag them out or whatever, right? So on and so forth. Now, with Tartaglia, the optimal way to play him is you want to press his elemental skill to change him to his melee stance, and then you want to do a couple of attacks with his melee stance. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the optimal amount of time to keep him on the field dealing damage is anywhere from like 5 to 10 seconds. I believe closer to the 10-second mark, right? And then after you keep him on the field for a short period of time, you swap him out. And what that does is it decreases the cooldown of his elemental skill, which is, if you don't play him optimally and if you run out the timer on his elemental skill, it is an insanely long amount. It's like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that. And so, yeah, that's basically how you play him optimally. Now, for me, what I do, right, when I have a character on the field, I kind of don't really want to, I don't want to sweat too hard while playing Genshin. I don't want to hyper focus. I don't want to get like too engrossed in the game or anything like that. I kind of just want to enjoy myself, play casually, so on and so forth. And so what I like to do is I'll have a character on the field, and if let's say their elemental skill is on cooldown, and I want to wait for it to get off cooldown so that I can activate it, and then I can deal damage with them, I can swap them out afterwards, so on and so forth. So what I'll be doing is I'll be maneuvering my character in the combat field, and while I'm maneuvering, I'm basically either constantly pressing the elemental skill button, or I am holding it down. Most of the time I'm pressing it, I'm tapping it, right, in preparation for their elemental skill to regenerate, right? Now, for a character like Tartaglia, that playstyle doesn't work. You can't do that. It just, there's no way that you can, play with that kind of very specific, casual gameplay and also play child optimally. There's no correlation, right? You essentially need to press his E one time, deal damage, then swap him out. So if I were to play him, I would have to essentially like train myself and practice to where I don't, constantly press the elemental skill button and don't screw up Tartaglia's, I guess, his attack patterns and whatnot. So yeah, that's basically the main reason why I'm not a big fan of him, because I know that if I were to play him, I would suck at playing him, and that's not really what I want to be doing in the game. I don't want to be sucking in the entire game. So, I'm not a big fan of Tartaglia. However, I will say that Tartaglia as a character, he is absolutely 100% in the top 10 characters in the game. The thing is that, like, there are some people who can argue that Tartaglia or Child can be built as a DPS character. He can be classified as a DPS character. There are other people who would rather classify him as a support character. I've also heard the term thrown around of him being what is known as an enabler, which is where he enables the rest of the characters on your team to deal some more damage and to, you know, increase their efficiency at DPS output, right? I would say that you could certainly put Child or Tartaglia on a DPS tier list. And then you could argue the specifics of whether he is a DPS character or not in a separate, you know, separate occasion, I guess. You could argue about that. Um, I would say, just generally speaking, as a character, his utility and his potential on a team, Tartaglia is absolutely 100% in the top 10. He could be in top 5. However, I don't know the exact number that he would be. And for me personally, I would hesitate to put him in the top 5. He may be, but I'm just, you know, my bias is sneaking in a little bit, and it's kind of influencing my thinking about him. But I will say that if you do know how to build him, you know how to play him properly, he can be a very, very high quality Hydro damage dealer, Hydro enabler, Hydro support character for your team overall, you know? So, yeah. Last of all on the list, we have Mona. Now, Mona, in my opinion, she is not a DPS character at all. That means that, in my opinion, she does not belong on this list in any capacity whatsoever, right? Just get her off. However, you can build her as a DPS character. There are people who have done so. It's just mainly like, you know, for a joke, for the memes, for fun, you know, kind of showing off to other people, oh, look what I did. However, if you want to utilize her properly and kind of use her for her strengths, right? She is primarily a support character. And what she does is she can accomplish two things. She can, one, provide some hydro application to enemies, and she can enable permafreeze teams to work, right? And she can also, well, I mean, I think that this is the main part about her kit that people utilize her for, right? Her elemental burst is it's an ability that will essentially just directly buff the damage output of the rest of your characters. It applies Hydro, and it also increases the percentage of damage that your characters deal overall. And so she is a fantastic character to buff damages of a character such as Ganyu, a character such as Ayaka, a character, you know, such as, for example, Kaya, who is a 4-star cryo character, you know? I would say, as a support character, Mona is very, very usable. I think that she is, you know, a top tier support character. However, there are replacements for her. Barbara, to a certain extent, a free 4-star Hydro character, can be used sort of as a replacement for Mona, as well as the newer 5-star character Kokomi, who is a, you know, second Hydro Catalyst character who I believe actually has better Hydro application than Mona does, right? So, yeah, the main thing, the main selling point behind Mona is Mona's Elemental Burst, which buffs the damage of the rest of your characters on the team significantly, and allows you to hit higher numbers, you know, to say the least. So, yeah, I would say that if we are talking about just overall utility in the game, Mona is a character that absolutely does belong in the top 10. I would say that she could potentially hit top 5 in terms of utility. However, it's very debatable. Like I would not be upset if she were lower than top 5, if she were like 6th place, 7th place, or so on and so forth. But you know, yeah, it's just I have to say, you know, looking at this tier list and you know, looking at the video that WatchMojo made in its entirety, it's just there's nothing else to say except for, you know, it's plain wrong. And you know, there's I think that there was a better way for WatchMojo to approach a tier list video, right? Like they didn't really give it a lot of thought and think things through. And in my personal opinion, I think from what I've seen and from what other players have, you know, commented about it, it doesn't feel like WatchMojo did a lot of research on the game and gather the necessary game knowledge to make the video. I don't honestly think that any of the, you know, people that were responsible for making this WatchMojo video, I don't feel like any of them actually seriously play Genshin Impact. I don't feel like they are experienced players at all. They kind of just, it seems like they are newbies who just walked into this game and know nothing about it, and then they just decided to kind of make a video to, you know, gather views and to, yeah, I don't know, to perhaps appeal to the people who aren't familiar with Genshin Impact too much and you know, think that they know information when they actually really don't. So yeah, I would say that overall, very, very scuffed. Not a big fan of it. And yeah, it is quite depressing to see content like that out there, and you know, to think about how there are players who actually watch these types of videos and consult these types of videos for legitimate advice, and what they're getting is just plain misinformation. So yeah, um, I actually, not too long ago, I made a really long extended video about a tier list of mine that I did based on characters that I enjoy and characters that I like in the game. Um, the video is insanely long. It is like almost 2 hours long, so I do not really recommend people to sit through the entirety of it. However, if you kind of want to get a rough idea of what I think of all the different characters in the game, just in general, separate and completely, you know, unrelated to this current tier list that I'm talking about here, you can go and kind of skim through my video that I made on my channel. But yeah, that's basically it. I kind of just wanted to make this video as sort of a little reaction from a nobody in the Genshin community who doesn't really know too much and is quite mediocre at the game. I kind of just wanted to give my thoughts on, you know, watching the WatchMojo video and seeing what, I guess, inexperienced people thought about Genshin Impact. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate it so much. The live stream for version 2.0 is actually going to be coming out in a couple hours from now. I think even maybe less than an hour from now. So I'm very excited, looking forward to version 2.4 and the future content, and I hope that everyone else is as hyped as I am. Looking forward to things, and I hope that, you know, in the future, everyone's RNG, everyone's luck, everyone's wishes go really well. I hope you get what you desire, and I hope you continue having fun and enjoying Genshin Impact. With that being said, that is the conclusion to my video. Have a great one, guys. Peace out.